Welcome to another Quantum Conversation. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. This is another episode in our Quantum Conversation Summit Series, Timelines, Creating the Highest Benevolent Outcomes. And my guest today is SomRa Anraika. She is an ET walk-in. Fascinating story if you have not heard that. She's a spiritual awakening teacher and facilitator. And today we're talking about higher timelines now. Advance your ascension using personal peace process. Hi, SomRa. Welcome.
Hi, Loren. It's so great to be here, especially with this really fun and fascinating topic.
It is a fun and fascinating topic. So there's going to be a point in the evolution of humanity where timelines will no longer be a thing. But until that point, we must command the timeline, steer the timeline. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, to me, everything really comes down to our own personal process. There's the global collective, but there's also so many variants of that, which I'm going to talk about today. And the global collective is more like what we've agreed upon, what the collective has agreed upon in that current timeline. There's so many. What dictates which one you're on, I'm going to talk about today. And that's really about your personal timeline, your presence, your energy, your issues, your power that you bring here, your unique gifts that you bring here. All of that goes into what governs where you are in the moment.
Yes. Okay. So as we get deeper into that, let's have you share on your early experiments and experiences, jumping and changing timelines, because that is a fascinating topic. We need to know what is required to shift reality. We've had stories of that happening, and so have you. So can you share with us some of those experiences?
Absolutely. So I've kind of been aware of the whole timelines thing for, probably 3 or 4 decades, ever since I've been on the conscious awakening path.
Yeah.
And then there was some talk in some of the channeling circles. My former partner and current collaborative partner, Geronimo Nye, we've done some things on your show. We would There were some cycles around 2000, 2001 of groups where the masters were talking more about timelines. After Y2K and all of that, there was all this buildup, and there was this expectation of something, big and glorious. And it was like, it wasn't all that big, whether people were afraid all the computers were going to shut down, or, a whole enlightenment was going to happen, a mass enlightenment. And so that was in the original global timeline many thousands of years ago, when we, most of us on this planet are actually extraterrestrials, from other worlds, bringing in our different talents and gifts, incarnating through a human body to help shift and direct the Earth's trajectory. And so in those original plans, it was around 2000 that a lot of big shifts were going to happen. Now, there were many markers on the timeline, and that was obviously a big one. And then 2012 was the next marker, and not the next one, but the next big one. And of course, similarly, there wasn't a mass awakening, but there are upticks every time, particularly those who are on the awakening journey. So around that time in the early 2000s, I was contemplating different things, and also as a body worker back then, I told you in different, in other interviews, where I could telepathically communicate with the cells of the body as I was, continually honing my skills, and I would ask them to relax. I would talk with them about why are they holding tension, and then help the consciousness, because it's almost always a child aspect or a past life aspect or both that's holding tension, pain, problems in the body. So And I would get great results. I mean, muscles would just melt under my hands. So I was experimenting with different approaches. And here's this thing about timelines and universes. And there is a difference between saying, what universe you're choosing and what timeline. But for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to consider them the same. And so I was using the word universe. So I was experimenting with, I choose, go into this interstate, I choose the universe that, and then it would be a certain thing. It would be very simple. And the masters always recommend practice with simple things first, not huge, big things. And there's lots of reasons for that. But I would be doing a massage and I would be holding, this tension spot. And I said, let's try it here. And I was like, go into that state. And I would say, I choose the universe where this muscle is relaxed. And it would be virtually instantaneous. The muscle would be relaxed that I was holding in that person's body. And so I was like, okay, this is really cool. So I kept doing that and it was consistent pretty much every single time, no matter who the person was, no matter how rigid their body was. Now, the more rigid their body was, the more I had to repeat it or go through layers of that. But that got my attention, needless to say. And then I was experimenting with money too, like finding coins, finding dollar bills and things. And I started small. I'm one of those people that gets excited when I find a penny still, it's like, yay. And, always affirming abundance and fun and keeping that fun energy. And so then I worked up to a nickel and I would I choose the universe where I find a nickel today. And I would. And, again, starting small and incrementally gets your consciousness accustomed to this. And things that are too big that your consciousness is not ready for is going to resist. And then you're going to go, this doesn't work. And you give up. So stay small, work your way up. Then I worked my way up to a dime. I choose the universe where I find a dime today. And it's one thing to say I find a dime, but when it's to say today, that means I'm defining this day. And when it would happen, that's magical. That's more than just accident, right? I would specifically find that type of coin or more than one of them. And then I worked up to a quarter. Then I worked up to a dollar and a $5 bill, $10 bill. Okay. And it was happening pretty much every time. And I'm like, this is so awesome. And I actually got stunted at a $20 bill because I had a memory of someone who lost a $20 bill, somewhat in my childhood that I knew and who was really sad about it because it was money for food for the week for her baby. And so it was like, oh, I don't want to take somebody's $20 bill. And there's a point in that if we have internal resistance or memories or things like that are judgments that block that thing or fears, we're not going to manifest. This is basically the same thing as manifestation. Choosing your timeline, choosing your universe, manifesting. It really comes down to the same thing. So that's kind of a side point I can get into a little later, but the real kicker for me was that I attended a weekly bi-monthly group. And there was a woman there who had a really crass voice and crass accent. And you would arrive and we're waiting for the presenter to begin. And she would talk like that all the time. And she would talk nonstop. And, we tried everything. We never said anything out loud. We would send her love. We would do all kinds of things. And she would still just be this way. And she would talk about really, stuff that wasn't meaningful to the rest of the group. So I know a lot of you listening know there may be that someone in some of your groups. So I was on my way there. It was like a 40-minute drive. And I said, okay, here's the big one. I choose I choose the universe where this person is quiet all the way in through the group. And I set it forth. I arrived. Lo and behold, she was quiet the entire time. And I was like, wow, all right, this is real. I'm on to something here. And so that set the stage. And then the next, thing was like, how am I doing this? So go ahead if you have a comment about that, because that was
Yes.
cool.
So what space were you in energetically? Was it the mind or was it more of a heart-centered space?
It's a really good question. And so as I progressed, I honed it and discovered more and more what it is. But the first, there are several keys. I've already mapped out like 18 at this point. I'm going to share a few today. But one of them is that relaxed confidence, just relaxed confidence in my connection with the universe, but with detachment, because it's not about outcomes in form. It's about how you experience those outcomes ultimately. If you focus on your experience rather than trying to manipulate the illusion, you're going to get further faster and you're going to have more lasting results. So I would go within, and there's kind of like this peace state too. It's like there's detachment, there's a stillness. It's like time stops for a moment. And and I guess maybe literally it does, and you're in that no time space, and it's all in an instant, and then I set forth the intention with detachment. It's like if it doesn't work, I'm not going to whine or fuss or say this doesn't work anymore and give up. It's just like there's still a surrender to there's a higher plan. So if I arrived and this woman was still doing her thing, talking up a storm, and everybody's like, I would trust that maybe that's meant to be, not go, oh, this didn't work. Always stay open-minded to there's a bigger picture going on. And you are still effective. You are still a part of that picture, but you must remain detached because there may be things your mind doesn't know. So I wasn't trying to manipulate reality. I was being that experimental state. Let's see what happens. So
Okay.
those are some keys. Now this led to, I dabbled with this a little bit, got onto other priorities, and then 2016 was when it really took flight. So you want me to go into that now?
Yes, we are thrilled by this because I know we're all like instantly doing this right now, thinking about things and just saying, I choose a universe that da 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 da. And so, okay, continue, please.
Okay. So I started thinking more in terms of timelines and getting into timelines. We did an interview with you, Duran and I, and Kodan Ba, the ET Ascended Master who works with me on property clearing. He's is into grids and ley lines and intergalactic ley lines and all kinds of stuff. So we do that service. But so we had lots of conversations because some really quirky things were happening on Earth that I was picking up on. And then 2016, I've talked about before on your show, in April of 2016 was a massive timeline skew that occurred. Now, skews have been happening all along. There are, dark forces that have been controlling the planet, and they have the technology to skew timelines. So it's, in a way, we're kind of working against that, but not really. Don't give it power, folks. It's their game, but the more in touch with your spirit you are and at peace you are, the more in touch with your power you are. And it doesn't matter what anybody out there is doing. You can choose the timelines for you personally that you want to be on. And there's specific ways to do that. So one of the things I discovered is after that big shift in April 2016, which led to the Mandela effect, what people know as the Mandela effect, and that was very traumatic for me, actually. I mean, the way the masters described it, it's like a huge oceanic wave came through and scooped up a massive portion of the population and put them on a different Earth, so to speak, that actually was not as favorable. And did not have a positive trajectory. And that was an artificial thing that happened that the dark forces controlling a planet use their technology to do. And part of their goals and all these kinds of things is to keep people from awakening. So that's kind of like the game, if we're watching a movie, they're the antagonists, they're the villains, and they're trying to do their agenda. And those of us trying to awaken to harmony and peace and love and that sort of thing, we stay on our hero's journey, or whatever you want to call it, and stay true to our integrity, and we will transform the whole deal. But that was pretty traumatic, and a lot of light workers I talked to was like, "Whoa, we're not sure this Earth thing is going to work out because we're now on a trajectory for the planet to explode." And that's actually happened several times before, which is kind of a bigger story. We're actually in the fourth version of a massive series of timelines simulations that we're doing Earth, and each time the Earth was destroyed. Well, so anyway, I was aware of that, went through my process, but also during that time, I had started delving into this packet of unconscious stuff that I became aware of. I always kind of had there's this thing in my field that I couldn't get into. Every time I tried, there's like this cloud, nebulous cloud. And I began working with psychics, healers, channels, and a therapist, and got to discovering that there was a massive packet of trauma in my childhood in this life that was completely blocked out of my consciousness. And I'm a super aware person, so this happens to the best of us. Everybody's got unconscious trauma. But this was huge. And so it was going to take a long time to unravel, and the next abuse and all sorts of things. And so that embarked on a year long, it took a year to really uncover. I wanted to uncover every single memory and reintegrate it into my consciousness. Because if we aren't aware of some part of ourselves, we're not fully awakened. That's a part of the awakening, is awakening to who you are. You don't have to relive your traumas, but you do need to connect with them to reintegrate. So I was in that process. I got in the role. I knew how to do it with using EFT, EMDR. There's all kinds of techniques, even using essential oils a certain way called AFT is very, very effective to transmute really quickly, but you have to release that energy. So I had my meditation chair, and where I would process my emotions, let those bubbles come out, connect with the memory flashback, let it come out. And I had my essential oils next to me always. And there was this bottle of rose oil. Rose oil is extremely expensive, and it looked just like this. It's just this little tiny bottle, and it's like $180. And I happen to have had got one on a deal, and I was in a funk in one of my distraught feelings as these emotions came up about this particular very intensive abuse trauma. And I looked at my essential oil bottle, and it was empty. And I was like, what? It was originally full, and it was empty. And I was like, oh no. And there's a story behind that, because one of my essential oil teachers, the aromatherapy teacher, said that she didn't screw her lid on her rose oil tight enough, and it evaporated out. And I'd always remembered that story, and I was like, oh no, I thought I screwed the lid on tight enough. And I was so upset. So I put it back in my little container. And anyway, I went through my trauma process. And then once that emotion was released and I was reclaiming my power and my light, and that can take, hours, minutes, hours, days, it just depends. This was all in one sitting. Then I heard my higher guidance say, look at the bottle of rose oil now. And I pulled it out. Lo and behold, it was full. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I just shifted my timeline here to a timeline where my rose oil did not evaporate out of the bottle. Okay, we're on to something. So I discovered, as I was continuing to unravel my abuse history and find in the next flashback, and this was every single day I was dedicated working on this. The next one would come up. When I was in the discomfort, and I don't, and there's lots of ways to do these types of processes. You have to be very skilled, and you need practitioners. So folks, don't try this necessarily on your own. I would, first be in the discomfort of the self that experienced the trauma. That's that trauma emotion, intense fear, anger, whatever it is. I would look at the bottle of rose oil. It would be empty. Then I would release these emotions, go through this clearing, just accept that this is what happened, and the abuse, reintegrate that part of me into my consciousness, because every issue, every trauma is a fragment out in your field. Okay, so now, it's back into my center, reintegrated. I looked at the rose oil bottle, it was full every time. And there was one time where I was in the middle of the process where I picked up the bottle and it's like empty. And as I'm releasing, I'm literally watching it fill the bottle through the glass. it's like as if it was manifesting out of the quanta, of the universe. It was absolutely fascinating.
Oh,
Yeah, and so did you have a comment about that?
no, I just, what were you, I mean, that's just fascinating. You would think that something's going on there, but this is timelines literally shifting in front of you.
Yes. Yes. And so, because of what happened with the Mandela effect, and I want to talk more about that in a minute, that created a bunch of warping and flopping of timelines. So, timelines were really flopping. 2016, 2017, they started to settle down a little bit in 2018. So, a lot, there's all kinds of stuff on the internet. There's lots of misinformation, but that's saying that's false memories. It is not false memories. One of the only places you're going to find accurate information is YouTube. There's still a lot of videos where people are documenting these flip flops where, like they remember movie lines one way and then, but it's showing another way now. I'll go into those in a second. So with this rose oil, I was already in that fluxing and flopping. I'm very aware of it. I mean, and even in space, I would drive, like 40 minutes somewhere and I would go through several timelines. I could feel the shift, literally like, boom, boom, and feel the difference. Well, I actually got bold enough to do this demonstration in front of a group. So I was having one of my sound events, in person sound events back then, and I was giving a teaching about this, and I passed around the bottle to everyone, and it was empty. And I asked Spirit, I said, make sure it's empty before I start so I can do this, demonstration. It was. And everybody, they held it up to the light. They looked at us, they could tell, it's like, yeah, there's nothing in here. It's empty. And then I held it between my hands and my heart because I was getting to the point where now I could do it deliberately. And just relax into that timeless state, detached, and just said, I choose the timeline. I was using the word timeline at this point. I choose the timeline where this rose oil bottle is full. I relax into it and then I wait to feel this click. And then the click happened and I held it to the light and it was full. And I passed it around the room. And they're like, whoa, yeah, yeah. And they were like, I can feel the weight is even heavier. And there was at least one person in the room who said, I saw the moment you did that there's this light flash behind your heart chakra, and then it disappeared. It was like, whoom, like something stepped in and disappeared. And that was definitely an aspect of my higher self that was masterful at this. And so I got it proven by other people too. Yes, we're seeing this. This is really happening. And we can do this. So, do you have a question before I go to the next thing?
I'm just really impressed because, and I'm just thinking about that year, 2016, 2017, 2018, and experiences that many of us had, but please continue.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's called the Mandela effect? To those of you listening who don't know, it's named after Nelson Mandela, the leader of South Africa who was in prison. And in 2010, there was a group that a psychic was leading, and a regular group apparently. And then the subject of Mandela came up because suddenly there was like news or whatever that he was coming out of prison, and people were shocked because several people, they were like, I remember he died in 1991. I saw the funeral on TV and everything. And this several people had this experience and several others didn't. And so this psychic investigated deeper and found that there was a timeline skewing that occurred. And actually, like, there were many, like I said, because the dark forces, they're always manipulating and maneuvering the global timelines. But this was a biggie. And so that's why it's named after the Mandela effect. But there are now thousands and thousands of effects. You can find a lot on YouTube. Some of the most common ones people talk about is now Berenstain Bears, the cartoon. I never watched that, but that now it's called Berenstain Bears. And it's spelled differently. And people are like, what happened? And the company says it's always been Berenstain Bears. But there are a few YouTube videos where you can find people have found old VHSs that says Berenstain Bears. That's an example of a timeline flop, because when a timeline skews and shifts, usually you can't find evidence of the old because everything in the history of that timeline is now changed to whatever the current thing is. But because the timelines were all floppy, then it could flop back and forth. A few things could flop back and forth, or there's what I call overlays, timeline overlays. So I'm going to do a screen share real quick and show, kind of give people a sense of what this is like. So it's like that. It's flopping, and those of us who can perceive from the higher dimensions, it looked kind of like that. Although many, many, many more timelines flopping and flipping, so they could change constantly. Now, I'm looking to see where my other. Oh, here we go.
Share it again. Thank you.
There. All right. So
Wow.
this is kind of like all the Earths are in their little spots, and this was a timeline skew, and there's there's an Earth there, but it's not appearing right now in my software. So this is what it looked like. Every Earth is kind of in its own timeline track, and when this skew happened in 2016, it's like it's floating out, and there's no place for it to go. There's no place for it to fit. So one of the examples I use, those of you who know about free radicals and aging, a free radical is an atom where it's missing an electron, and so it grabs electrons from other atoms. And then that causes a cascade effect where atoms in your body start to break down that leads to aging. And it's kind of like that. This skewed timeline Earth doesn't have a place, and so it's kind of flopping all around, and it still exists. So what happened is, let's see, yeah, so there's our timeline flopping. So now we have timelines flopping and overlapping. Several versions of Earth history and current events are happening simultaneously, and it keeps changing. So one of the cool things about that is that's use this to tell your mind reality, which is really the illusion, right? The version of reality we see is malleable, it's changeable, and we have evidence everywhere, everywhere. And like I say, Mandela effect. Google that or search it. Don't Google it. Google is suppressing the information. Go on YouTube and search it. Yeah, Google will tell you it's all false memories. You're not remembering. See, because even though the dark forces could change the illusion, they cannot change your memories. And that was one thing that they can't do, that other than try to manipulate or hypnotize you through mass media and things like that to believe something different. So don't go there. Don't fall for it. A lot of people remember South America. Don't just remember. I know South America was directly under North America in their other timeline. I was totally into geography, and now it's way out in the Atlantic Ocean. Ecuador. I did business with someone in Ecuador. Ecuador was in Mountain Time. Now it's in Eastern Time. It's like, what the heck? Because it's moved. And so there are some people who will remember it as it is now, but a lot of people remember how it was. And also Australia was below New Zealand. I did a ton of study in this back in the day because I wanted to know more about New Zealand and Australia back then. I was really into it, watching documentaries. Now suddenly in this new weird timeline, New Zealand's down below. And it's not that New Zealand moved, but it's that Australia is higher up now, closer to the equator. That was not that way in the original timeline most of us remember. These are many, many examples. There's just so many examples. Movie lines. Luke, I'm your father. That's one of the big ones, right? In Star Wars. I was a huge Star Wars fan. Watched countless times. And it's interesting because in my timeline, it was, no, I'm your father. That's what it is now. My original timeline. And I remember they released it in 1997, I think it was. They did a re-release in this big screen. Went to watch it in the big screen. And I left and I said, it's so weird. I was telling my friend, everybody thinks he says, Luke, I'm your father, but it's, no, I'm your father. And so and I remember these things now, that, okay, timelines have been flopping because when you're dealing with time, even though this big experiment happened in 2010, and really they did several experiments, it affects the past as well as the present. So it's craziness if you don't know how to stay on your own track. And if you don't know, if you're basing your reality on what the outside says rather than what your insides know.
So who's doing this? You said the dark forces Manipulated the skew?
They created skews in the timelines. They've been doing it for
Why?
decades.
To keep us from ascension.
Yes, exactly. That's the primary goal. Now, what the ET Masters told us about the primary Mandela effect event was there were no rules. They were given no rules, the scientists, the quantum physicists, except just don't blow up the planet. That was the primary thing. And let's set this intention. We want to keep people suppressed. Don't blow up the planet. Go do your calculations. So they're literally working with a massive collider. If those of you know what I'm talking about, in Europe, that's
Is
one
that
of their primary places.
CERN?
CERN, yes, yes. So it's
And
CERN. They're
very,
they're the biggies. They're totally run by the dark forces. Yeah, that's
and
behind the scenes. People, employees don't know that, but those behind the scenes do.
all right, not to get too far off track, but it's very interesting that this last eclipse in America, so in 2017, that was still when timelines were kind of wobbly. In 2017, we had the eclipse across America from Oregon all the way to South Carolina or North Carolina, thereabouts. And then this one went from Mexico all the way up to New
Maine.
York,
Yeah.
Maine. And then CERN did something during that event. And so was that another manipulation of timelines? What's your take on that?
I wasn't paying much attention to them at that point because I was very focused on my own
Yeah.
internal experience.
Okay,
But
cool.
yeah, yeah. So I can't really
You just have
comment
to do
as
that. Yeah, okay.
yeah, you got and that's one of the big keys is continually choose every single day, all day long. I choose my optimal timelines and be detached from what that is. But there's a key, and I'll get to that in a minute, in what determines optimal, okay? Because it's not always what your mind thinks, right? So, I work with my stepdaughter, who's a very gifted psychic. We do sessions, and we're probably going to do an event on your show at some point. We had a client recently who was seeing us. She said, I experienced a glitch in the matrix. I was driving down the road. I've lived in this town my whole life, and there was a side road, and it repeated. Just moments later, I saw it again. We looked into it and deeper, and what? Long story short, she as a child had thought about a house on that road and wanted to live in it. And there was actually an alternate timeline where she did. And as a child, she actually was tapping into that. She grew up in a very abusive household. And as a child, she was thinking, gee, I wish we were a happy family and we lived in that house. Well, there actually was a timeline where the family was very different. They were not abusive and it was a relatively happy family. And so she held this belief, and in the session, we were helping her heal what was unresolved in this, that if we were just a happier family, my life would have gone better, things like that, and without the abuse. Well, it turns out that in that timeline, that entire family was murdered. And the lesson was in all of this and this glitch that she experienced in the matrix to get her attention to consult us and unwrap this was that you can't assume that how things are in the physical is the best. It's all about your internal experience and how you feel, regardless of what's happening. A happier timeline on the outside doesn't necessarily mean a happy ending or a better experience. That happened recently in a session, and I was like, wow, this is taking it even deeper. This is powerful stuff. So, as we get into timeline jumping and shifting and things like that, and making those choices, I'm looking at my notes here. the there are what's called lateral or horizontal personal timelines, and focus on your personal timeline. Don't try to change the earth because there's too many different beliefs coming in. Definitely do not think I want to be on the earth where so and so is president or so and so is happening, because you don't know if that's the best one. How things appear are not necessarily facts, okay, or who you think is best. Focus on what you want to feel. That's one of the keys. What do you want to feel in your ideal timeline? And the number one recommended thing is peace. What do you want to feel in your being? Don't focus on trying to make peace happen outside. But what peace is your innate being? It's a part of your innate being. You just forgot. Keep focusing within. I choose the timeline that is most peaceful for me. As an example. Now, there's lots of variations you can do with this. But as you sink into that, practice that every day and make a commitment. That's another key. Make a commitment consistently. I choose peace no matter what. Then your timelines will begin to align with that. And you tend to manifest more peaceful experiences, but you're not trying to change the mirror outside, because reality is just mirroring what you believe. You're changing your inner state, and then that cycles back around. Because a lot of people don't realize you're living in a torus, a tube torus. So I have a picture here. I'm going to screen share right here. So this is one level of our field. This is what I call your core consciousness field. Energy is moving up and cycling around. And I say the word energy loosely, it's much more than that. Frequencies, and all of that's determined by your core beliefs, particularly in your lower three chakras. It's moving up and then it's cycling around. And that's creating the reality, what we call reality, around you. Everyone's in their own bubble. And then there's huge collective bubbles, but everybody's in their own bubble creating their version of reality all the time. And it's not just about your conscious thoughts, it's your unconscious thoughts. That's where people fall short. They don't realize you need to be working on your unconscious. You need to be getting to the heart of that, which is a lot of the work I do, is help people get to that, release these held moments in time. They're not gone away just because you forgot them. It's all right there in your field, and it's continually vibrationally affecting what you draw to you every single moment of every single day. And so when someone is reacting negatively to something, let's say mishaps happen. This is a common thing. You got an intention for your day, and then the printer stops working, and then the internet goes out, and whatever it is you're trying to do. And if you invest energy in anger about that and judging it, and it's like, see, the universe is against me or whatever. If you reinforce old beliefs, because we were all conditioned in a world of disconnection from the universe, and God is judgmental, or is, however your conditioning was. There's a lot of misconceptions. They're always cycling around. That's a choice moment. So you can either reinforce the old belief, and then you're going to experience it again. You're going to experience reflections again, or you can go, this is some of my old stuff coming up. This is just my old stuff manifesting. Okay, so use reality to show you what it's a reflection. It's meant to be a reflection. I say reality, the illusion, your version of reality it's constantly reflecting to show you what you're believing unconsciously. And so you go, okay, I manifested this. Always own whatever's happening. You manifested it, whether you like it or not. And it's like, okay, this comes out of, what does this remind me of in my past? What am I feeling right now? Well, I'm feeling anger. And then you go deeper into that, and this is what I teach in my classes. And I take people through in sessions and group work, is how to do that. And then make that shift. And even if those of you who are listening are new to this, let this plant a seed and start in motion. You can start today. It's a choice point. Make a new choice. You can choose to reinforce the old, like, see, you can't trust men or you can't trust women. I hear those things all the time. It's like, do you want to keep reinforcing that belief? Or do you want a reality where, you feel safe and at peace no matter what? Let that be your goal. Now you've cycled that into your tube torus. This is what it's often called, this tube torus. And you're going to manifest a different reality. Where people get hung up a lot of times is that takes time usually. And so you're going to have the old beliefs cycle through a few more times and manifest. And they're choice points again. And so the more you keep choosing the reality you want, which is an internal state, then the more you reinforce the new reality. And eventually your Taurus is going to be clean of the old reality, because it's like conditioning a muscle through weightlifting. And you keep working that muscle, and then that muscle is going to get strong and clear, and that's going to be your primary reality. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So here's So a lateral timeline is more about making a change that doesn't really progress you. The goal as a spiritual being is vertical, so to speak, is moving upward, as in expanding and evolving into higher and higher states of being and perspectives. So now, don't get me wrong. Definitely, I'm not judging anger or anything like that. We need to feel our feelings. This is often missing in spiritual circles. We need to feel our feelings, not suppress them or cancel them away. We need to be with them and let them move through and out of us. It's just energy. Most people are afraid of those feelings and afraid of their own fear. It's just energy. Let it move through. Don't identify with it. Get clear about what you need to learn from it, and then choose your timeline. It's like keep reinforcing the new reality after you've cleared. If you haven't cleared, then you are going to reinforce the old reality because that's still running. That recording's still running. So you see there are steps here, and then there are these rungs. So a personal, spiritually evolving path is on a spiral going upward. Not everybody is. Some people are not here to awaken. They're here. They're just getting started in their reincarnation experiences. So as you're evolving, what I call timeline jumping, these are vertical lines I put in here, and so these are like timeline variants. So when you make a new choice, you jump to another timeline. You shift. And so we're actually doing it all day long. We just don't realize it. And so they're what I call micro shifts or micro variants. You're constantly micro jumping through every single choice, thought, what you put your energy in. And so you can be jumping down lower. You can be jumping down higher. And lower is not bad. So we're not talking about good, bad, or any of that. We're talking about what's optimal, what's in alignment with your heart, what choice is in alignment with your heart, that sort of thing. And anything that is soul aligned, peace, joy, love, is going to rise you higher. Those are the defaults. Go for peace, joy, or love. Peace is usually the easiest for most people. Most people don't really know what love is, and joy is often seems like an unattainable goal a lot of times. But peace, it's like, oh God, yes, give me peace. I want peace. Most people can identify with that. But just using it as an example, that causes you to jump, and you're continually. The goal is through evolution is to be spiraling upward, not bouncing all around, up and down, and or laterally, where you're not really progressing. You're kind of going in a circle. You go in a circle when you keep reinforcing old beliefs. You rise when you make a new choice, a soul-aligned choice. Your soul is absolute peace. You cannot go wrong with choosing peace. You cannot go wrong with choosing joy. You cannot go wrong with choosing infinite love. That's going to be soul-aligned every time. Ego stuff is all about shoulds and shouldn'ts and good and bad and better and best and all these comparisons. If you're thinking that way, you know you're an ego. Go for this essence of feeling. Peace is not relief. A lot of people think peace is relief. That's in reaction to chaos. It's like, oh, now peace, quiet. Real peace is what you are made of. It's who you are. And that takes practice of continually going within through meditation, centering. It's a state of being, which is completely different than just a compensator for chaos. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
It's much more profound. So here we are in a Taurus. Now, there are actually multiple fields. So this is TV example. That's the person inside there. It's actually much, much bigger. And so this is creating your reality all the time, cycling up and through, cycling up and through. Whatever you're thinking, feeling, and carrying in your unconscious, all of that's going in all the time. So it's not just action choices, it's choices in attitude, choices in perspective. And always aspiring, always understanding you don't know the whole picture. Your mind doesn't. And always aspiring to, divine, show me what your truth is in this moment. That's a whole other teaching, to really live from that place of, here's what I feel, here's what I choose. I know that joy and peace is my being, even though my mind doesn't understand it all yet. Divine, soul, source, however you think of it. Show me what your truth is. I want that version of reality. You see, so that's the surrender piece, because the divine always knows more than you. Way, 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 way more. Your soul self, which is the real you, knows more than your ego mind does. And most people are identified with their ego minds. We're caught up in work and getting this done and that done and trying to make things happen, trying to make our spiritual evolution happen. All of that's still ego run. You don't make spiritual evolution happen, you relax into it. And it wants to evolve. Evolution is natural. So, what you perceive from the five senses, as I put here, is what most people think of as reality, is actually the illusion. And so, what you're perceiving with your five senses, and really there's more, but just say the five senses, is reflections of your consciousness all the time, all day long. You get behind that slow person when you're driving. This happened the other day, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to do a timelines talk. I'm going to practice this right now. A friend of mine and I had a meeting to get to that took an hour drive, and it was very important to get there at a certain time. And we got behind a slow person on a country road, single lane. We couldn't pass him no matter what. It was a big truck. I was trying everything, and then it was like I choose the timeline where this truck doesn't exist. And I'm like, no, that's not really the way to go. Nothing was affecting it. And finally I was like, oh, of course. What do I want to feel? Well, I want to feel peaceful right now and know that we're getting there in perfect timing and all is well. No getting bent out of shape about anything. My friend was a little bit, but I wasn't, because I was like, we need to practice our spiritual practices here. I was like, I choose the timeline. And believe me, we were following this truck for miles. Every turn he was taking in front of us as well, that we had to take. And I said, I got in touch with my peace, and I said, I choose the timeline that is most peaceful right now. And I opened my eyes, and within a few seconds, we took a turn, and the truck turned in front of us. There actually a car got in between us. They all turned on that road. When we turned on the road, the truck was nowhere in sight. I don't know what happened there. Did it turn? Did I literally jump timelines? Quite possibly. It was my state of being. What did I want to feel? Not, I want that truck to go away. Because as soon as you identify something in the illusion, you give it power and energy. You can't say, the universe doesn't understand no. That's a saying. It's not about, I don't want this. What do you want? Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Big key there.
I love that. I really do. And I know that we're all looking at our lives and remembering experiences that we've had where we did shift that. And it's quite remarkable. And it comes in the most subtle ways. As you know, there's this operation over, kind of a noisy operation, 5 days a week in my neighborhood. And one day I woke up and thinking about the subconscious mind and how it's really just going to reflect what I'm feeling and impressing upon it. And I started to hear this noise start up, and I immediately focused on, I love what you said about peace. And I believe that part of that, there's a peace that came over me from a byproduct of what I did here. And I said, someday it's going to be a park. And I felt the peace within that. And I felt that I could really see all the people going to the river, enjoying the river, tubers, rafters, and I could see that. And guess what happened that day?
What?
That machine didn't run. It turned off, and it was quiet the rest of the day. And recently someone was visiting me, and I was thinking, yeah, that Friday, there's not going to be any work. And there wasn't any work. It's just amazing how that happens. And there's no forcing of it. That's a key thing. It's kind of like, I love what you said about the outcomes. It's kind of like take it or leave it type attitude. But there's an internal trust, a knowingness, a feeling that we can absolutely rely on. And this is where you tie it all together by saying it's that feeling of peace, the feeling of peace. What do we want to feel? And that is extraordinary. So you're helping me identify it, and everyone else who's watching and listening to this, how we can truly command our timeline,
Yes.
command it from our peace, from our love, from our joy. We've got this then.
Yes, we do. We have way more power than we realize, but we have to be in that state of just not judging or making the outer real. We're making it real by our attitudes and our interpretations all the time. You could call, if you're calling that thing out there bad, well, then it has to be, or uncomfortable or awful or whatever, then it has to be that for you because you are creating your experience of reality all the time, every moment.
Yes.
And it's profound. It's profound. And I know a lot of listeners are going to be starting to become more aware. And that's really, really, really important. That is a part of spiritual mastery, definitely part of evolution, and a big, big key. So being present with yourself is another key. Being present. If you are fragmented in all of your thoughts and like this is that and this is that, or you're distracted by a lot of things, it's very difficult to hone your timeline. So being present is always important no matter what, you know. And I take people through processes on how to do that, but deep breathing is a simple one. Just 3 deep breaths, bringing your attention within, being present, that calls your energies in, and you can literally call your energies in. And in that state, now you have more to work with. When you're divided, you don't have your energy's diffused. So come to that place within. I choose the timeline of peace, say. And of course, there's many timelines of peace. You leave it up to the universe and your soul to align those things, so to speak. Your free will choice is choosing peace rather than frustration or anger or whatever it may be in that moment. Process your emotions out, but then what's your default? What's your default? And self-love is another default. I say, let self-love, self-validation, self-acceptance be your practice default. When something happens and you quote make a mistake or whatever you think of it, or somebody breaks up with you or something doesn't go the way you want, you can go to old defaults of self-negating, like, and feeling shame and sadness. And you do want to process those emotions with techniques. But then it's like, let your default keep coming back to loving yourself. So I tell people things like coach yourself all day long. Great examples are like, you did a great job. I love the way you put that cup on the table. I love the way you signed your name on that form. Great job. And be in that state of positive reinforcement all day. It's not fake. It's like having a little coach on your shoulder, rather than, oh man, you suck at this. You should have done that. You blah, 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 blah. Don't fight that stuff. Let it just, don't give it energy. That's the key. Don't try to cancel it out. I mean, that's a step early in a people's spiritual journey, but there's a more evolved way to be if you want to actually change your reality permanently. And it's just like, don't fight it. Don't give it power. It's like, oh no, that was a great learning experience. Always turn it to, in the end, the value and the self-love and self-validation. If you are hating on yourself in any way, then you're judging yourself, then you've now split your energies. You created a conflict in consciousness. You cannot be powerful in that way because the you that you're identified with now is, quote, bad. And that self doesn't have power. That self is a victim. That self is whatever you're telling yourself. So simple practices: self-love, self-acceptance, self-validation, another key to timeline jumping to optimal timelines, because you're going to find yourself in the timelines that love you, that are self-affirming, that are self-loving. If you want to be in that timeline, you got to practice being it now. It's not
Oh,
that
I
hard,
love
really.
that. I really do love that. This is where we're flipping and doing the opposite, where we give our doubts and our worries 111% of our energy, used to belief in it. But now we're switching it where we can, when we start to feel that stuff come up, or the negative words in our mind, or the self-talk that's not so helpful, then we can absolutely use that as a trigger point, a choice point, and switch it And that is our mastery work. So good on everyone for doing this, because that is the real work, to give ourselves love and kindness and peace and happiness, joy, and all of it. We're the ones responsible for that. And no one outside of us is going to give us that. They may temporarily, but that's not the real work. I love how you're describing this essence of us, this state of being us. And that you've described very well is a huge empowerment point, a point of power and
Yes.
creation.
And that leads to permanent changes, not flopping back and forth, not vacillating. The more you keep reinforcing what you want and what actually benefits you most, which is states of being, like peace, joy, love, and keep practicing. It's a practice, folks. We got to practice, because the old way, it just keeps, I call it like, it's like a throwing a bowling ball, it keeps wanting to go in the gutter, it's like the old negative, keep it on track. But
Mhm.
again, be honest about your emotions. That's another key. You must be honest about how you feel in the moment. I feel upset about this. I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling terror. Be with that energy so that it can move through, and then you can reinforce your timeline. Otherwise, you're devoting energy to suppressing that more, putting it out of your mind because you're scared of it. It's just an old energy that's stuck, needs to move through, and then come back to your, that is self-loving. To let yourself feel your fear is self-loving. To let yourself feel even your shame, which is the hardest one to heal, to feel guilt, to feel anger. Just let it move through without attachment to it or identifying with it. This is a part of me that had this experience and felt this feeling and took on beliefs from it, because there's always beliefs that come from every event in our history that's holding us back. Get in touch with that belief. It's like, oh, I stopped believing that I was safe in the world. That's a common one. Don't feel safe in the world. Lots of experiences in our childhoods to reinforce that. Okay, this is just another one of those. Okay, I love me. This is nothing you can do is just hug yourself. That sends a signal through your nervous system that you're safe, particularly if you're feeling fear. You need comfort, not suppressing it. You need comfort. Don't cancel it. Don't spiritual bypass it. And it's like, oh, I just need to meditate more. No, be with it. Be present with it. Let that flow through. Default back to your peace, your joy, your self-love. And that's a part of personal peace processes that I said here. There are several. EFT, which is my primary technique I use, which is tapping on meridian points. Most people know about it now. Very powerful technique when done appropriately. If it's not done a specific way, you might not get the effects you want. But using processes, you can make a list. This is one they call the personal peace procedure in emotional freedom techniques, EFT. Make a list of everything in your life that you're uncomfortable about, present and past. Every memory, everything. And that could be a long list for some of us. Put a star by the big ones, the ones that really, anything that evokes discomfort still. If it does, then you're not resolved. And the part of awakening is you must resolve. You become fully resolved and therefore unified again. These parts of you are not unified. They're hanging out, isolated. And so make that list, star the ones that are big, save the big ones for practitioners and teachers like me to help you with it. Because, like the heavy ones, like, major abuse, trauma, accidents, deaths, things like that. And work on the little ones. Like, oh, that time when I was laughed at in front of the class at fifth grade, or whatever, things that any memory that still goes inside your field or your emotions, you contract. That tells you there's something that's calling for love, healing, and resolution. And then use techniques like EFT to process it through and just talk about it. Even though they laughed at me in front of the class, I'm still a good person. Even though they didn't get me, that was their issue, not mine. That's one of my favorites. That was their issue, not mine. That doesn't mean anything about me. I did the best I could, things like that. It can help move you through. And if we could talk about the special offers if you want, where I have some approaches that can help people with that, unless you have a question.
Your work is really tremendous for all walks of life. What you can do for spiritual people is amazing, because your whole story attracts just those beautiful souls that are interested in your story, but you deal with all walks of life. I'm thinking of people who you could help right straight away. And so we're just so honored that you have stepped up and are sharing these techniques, because it is the heavy lifting that we need to do that gives us true liberation. And it really does help when there's a facilitator for some of those big things that we have stars next to. But these are little steps as well that we can take, and you've given us powerful tools for that. So thank you. Before we move on into ways that people can work with you, EFT, for those who don't know what that is, it's emotional freedom technique, and there's something physically going on the body. So when you were tapping in these different areas, what is that all about for those who don't know?
Okay, so it's a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is talk therapy, the old traditional therapy, where you talk about the problem, the issue, the habit, the addiction you're dealing with, your feelings about it, the past memory, whatever it is. And that can be effective, but a lot of times it just kept reiterating it for people, and they didn't get results through traditional therapy that way alone. And so the people who brought this technique together, there were many people in psychology in different places who brought EFT together in the early 90s. It's a combination of many things. So it's taking that cognitive behavioral therapy approach and then tapping on points on, these are the end points of the meridians. So there are 14 Chinese meridians. Energy flows through them. They feed our organs, our cells, our whole body, and our field. And there are actually several layers of grids, not just these meridians, but for the sake of EFT, these are endpoints. So those meridians go run their course, and then they have endpoints. So like right here, they have a stopping point. And that's where they say, like in Chinese medicine and acupuncture, they would put, needles to and stimulate that to draw energy, and they do it in other places too with the needles, but the idea is it's closest to the surface of the skin. So when you tap, you're stimulating. You could actually massage and rub, but tapping is active, and it keeps you active. It's not a technique to go zone out, and just what it's something to be very present with. The idea is bringing it present and forward. And what I see happening clairvoyantly in people's fields, I often describe it, it's like a plunger is on your head or whatever. It's literally wherever these packets of things are in your body and your field of stuck emotions and trauma and uncomfortable situations, unresolved issues. They're like hardened crystals in your field or clouds, things like that. When you're tapping and talking about it, the idea is you go through all the points because you don't need to like meticulously figure out which meridian is closest to this or affecting it. You just go through the routine, it's very quick, while you're talking about the motions, while you're talking about it, and you aim to feel the energy of it. You have to feel it. That's where people go, oh, EFT didn't work for me. That's one of the reasons, because they're not letting themselves feel it. They don't feel safe enough, and that's why you need help a lot of times. You've got to shift your attention out of your current mind. Sometimes when people are tapping, they're talking about the thing and they're holding it like, I'm really afraid of this, or I'm really angry about it, and they're not letting themselves relax into it, which is the shift point. You don't go straight to positive talk because that suppresses it. Talk about how uncomfortable you are and be with it. Light workers, starseeds, stop being afraid of your fears and your feelings and these energies. Do you want to be a master? Or do you want these to be your master? Do you want your fears to be your master? It's your choice every moment. The more comfortable you get with these energies, no, don't give them power. They're just energies, let them move through. The more you're reclaiming your mastery every single time. So while you're tapping on these points, you're talking about it, it's literally sucking that cloud or that hard crystal or whatever it is up and out of your field into what I call the quanta of the universe. The quanta is the particle waves that are smaller than atoms. And it's what I call recycle. Recycles into something useful. Because otherwise, if you're holding on to it in your field, you're actually holding up the universe, so to speak. The universe is always flow. So this is contributing to the flow. Now it can be recycled and repurposed for peace, joy, love, more peace, joy, love, for yourself as well as the whole universe. And that's the spiritual version. You're not going to hear that in traditional EFT. This is, yeah, the broader based version of why we're doing it.
Okay, there is then it's not just woo woo. It really does work.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
based on acupuncture and the meridians, and it's the vocalization is actually what helps that to release. So, let's do something for our group, and our group can follow along. Let's just take a few minutes and do a short sample of that because I'm feeling something needs to come up.
Okay.
So, what should we do?
Yeah, I can just lead us through a round or two of
Okay.
this. And since I'll be leading everyone, and Loren, you'll echo what I say. So basically, it's saying certain phrases. The practitioner will lead you. And I'm intuitively feeling as well. This is not going to be an in depth intuitive feeling. I'm not going to go into pulling up stuff in your individual consciousness, Loren, but just a generality. We're going to speak in general terms. Everybody listening, you're going to speak the thing that's it is for you. So pick something that you are not happy about, something you're uncomfortable with, a memory. Don't go big. Let's stay simple.
Mhm.
Something maybe you have a habit of overeating, too much sugar or coffee or things that you're wanting to, that it's not best for you in your evolutionary path. Something that happened at work recently. Pick something, and we're just going to call it even though I have this issue while we're tapping. And so while you're saying this, everybody was just focus on the issue, the thing, the event, and feel it as fully as you can, whatever you felt.
Mm.
Make note of what comes up because what's going to happen in a really effective EFT process is you're going to get memory flashes of things in your past that relate to the present discomfort. So, and we want to be specific. To be effective with this technique, it's not about I'm so stressed right now. There's so much stress. I feel so much stress versus very general. Okay, that can be helpful to diffuse acute intensity, but that's not going to heal the core. You need to get to something specific. So if I was leading a group, we would go through this for several minutes. We would be making notes of whatever flashes come up. Body sensations might be a pain in your neck or your back might come up. That's showing you where energy's held around that incident that needs to release. It's coming forward. So be with that discomfort. Rest your attention in that pain or tension or whatever it is while you're tapping, but don't give it power. Just rest your attention in it while you tap. And now I have this pain in my back. Okay. Right now, we're just going to talk about the issue. We're just going to say issue. So hopefully, give everybody a moment. They can, connect with something you want to tap about. This is just a demo, but you might get some realizations in the process. And so, okay, Lorena, so you want to keep your eyes open. You got something you want to think about?
Yes.
Okay. So we want you to be very present with it and just start tapping. And so everybody start tapping on what's called the karate chop point because it's like karate chop a board. That's why it's called that. It's on the side of your hand, the outer side under the pinky, 3 or 4 fingers tapping. How it works typically is we say a setup phrase, which is even though I have this issue, you would say the issue in an actual session. And then you say a positive statement. This helps any parts of you that are judging yourself for having the issue. We want that judgment to get out of the way, release. And that's usually the first thing I work on with someone. If they're carrying tremendous judgment about the thing, we work on the judgment first, not the thing itself. And then that resistance will diffuse, and then we get into the issue. So this just sort of helps set the stage. So, and it doesn't matter what point you're on, folks. So if you can't quite see what point I'm on, just tap and follow along as best you can. Okay. It's just the point, the fact that you're tapping is moving that energy. All right. So, Loren, focus on your thing. Everybody focus on your thing and say out, repeat after me, even though
Even though
I have this issue.
I have this issue
Right here, right now, I'm safe.
right here, right now, I'm safe.
And it's safe to think about this issue,
And it's safe to think about this issue,
even though
even though
I have this issue
I have this issue.
and I feel uncomfortable about it.
I feel uncomfortable about it.
It's safe to feel these feelings right now.
It's safe to feel these feelings right now.
It's just an energy,
It's just an energy,
and I'm still okay,
and I'm still okay,
just as I am.
just as I am,
Yeah. Even though I have this issue,
even though I have this issue.
I can love myself anyway.
I can love myself anyway.
Okay. Now we can move on to the eyebrow point, which is right at the end of the eyebrow, just above your nose. Even though I have this issue,
Even though I have this issue.
now tap on the side of the eye, which is the bone, not in your temple socket, right on the bone. Even though I have this issue.
Even though I have this issue.
Then under the eye, right on the bone. Even though I have this issue.
Even though I have this issue.
Okay, I'm hearing to say I'm going to add this in here, right under the nose now, right in the center. This issue does not define me.
This issue does not define me.
Yeah. Now the chin point, which is right in the groove under the lips, even though I have this issue.
Even though I have this issue.
And then the collarbone point, which is just under the knobs, slightly out of your collarbone. I am still completely lovable.
I am still completely lovable.
Okay. And now I add the liver point, which is under the rib cage. Take your 4 fingers and tap right under your rib cage. All 4 fingers. Let your thumbs just land where they naturally do, even though I have this issue.
Even though I have this issue.
And now under the arm, 4 fingers right under your armpit. I'm still a good person.
I'm still a good person.
And I'm still awakening.
And I'm still awakening.
This does not affect my ascension.
This does not affect my ascension.
And now top of the head, kind of tap all around, even though I have this issue.
Even though I have this issue.
All is well.
All is well.
And I am a good person no matter what.
And I am a good person no matter what.
Okay. Stop tapping, take a deep breath. And everybody just kind of notice how you feel. Do you feel some vibey energies? Did you have some emotion come up? You having sensations, memory flashes? And this is what you would do. You just keep unraveling it, and then you would tap about those things that came up. And you keep unwinding, 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 getting to the core. What's the core belief? What's the core event? You may or may not remember it entirely, but you just need to connect with that energy and move it through, and then you're free.
And that's why it's called emotional freedom technique. Wow. I got emotional there. And that was a surprise because it was about some anger, a way that I reacted. I've got some turkeys. And one of the turkeys was killed by a dog.
Oh.
And that incident really shook me. I yelled out loud. So I chose to go back into that energy without going into too many details. I was feeling guilty for the way I responded, like I screamed at the top of my lungs. And so I was feeling guilty about that. And so the emotion that came up was way more than just that instant. It was the whole timeline in a relationship with another person that was connected to this incident. And so, wow, just that short little, I'm going to do more, but just that short little experience, amazing to see the emotion that comes up.
Yes.
You
Yes, and
know,
good for you for just really being present with it. And that's it, folks. The more present you are with it and just relaxing to just let it come up, it's okay. You're going to be free. And you, just in this little bit, Loren, you really experienced the process, not just a demo.
yeah,
You just made a micro shift in your timeline, possibly leading to a macro shift, because this is a big thing for you, obviously,
yeah,
and feeling for things that are hurt and harmed and stuff like that. And as you keep tapping, it's going to lead back to your own self and the times that you felt
yes,
abused, mistreated, etc. That's really the pain we're reacting to that never got resolved back in the past. That needs to and can be.
yes, that needs to be released. What a powerful technique. This whole conversation was a nugget of information, a huge golden nugget of information that is extremely helpful in a really powerful, positive way empowering way for our future. And you've helped us become masters even more. So thank you for that. I love it. I
Thank
really
you.
do. Really good things to take from here. And we're all choosing timelines of peace. And when we all do this in our personal environment, in our personal world, the rest of the collective will match our bubbles or meet up with our bubbles, or will then be in a timeline for the collective. And now I can see why the dark forces don't want this individual experience to happen, because we will no longer be able to be controlled anymore. We will no
Absolutely.
longer be in fear anymore.
Right. We will be in command of our own being and our own reality, our own version of reality. The power you have, folks, is in how to feel. And that can shift the mind. They're controlling you through the mind, through images, fears, convincing you of narratives, things like
Mhm.
that. They're all stories. It's, I could go into a whole thing about that, but no matter what it is, the thing you can count on is that the universe is love. You are made of love. You are a part of the universe. That's the reality. The dark forces don't want you to believe that, don't want you to know that. You don't have to believe it, it's a fact. You need to relax into it. Don't try to convince your mind. Relax into it. Practice. Let your timeline reality shift so that you'll get reinforcements. And the more that happens, the more you get it. It's like, oh, okay, I'm the one in charge. I always have been. And now I can do something with this. And it gets fun.
Yay, we are ready for fun. Absolutely. We are
Okay.
ready for fun. And you are the chief maker of fun. You are.
I do my best. I can definitely use more fun for sure, or be more in a state of fun. But that's definitely a practice every day. How can I experience this as fun and enjoyable, no matter what it is? The whole chop
Yeah.
wood and carry water thing. I used to be like, I don't want to chop wood and carry water after I'm enlightened. You know the story. Before I was enlightened, I chopped wood and carry. But it's like, no, now you're experiencing multidimensional reality while your body is chopping wood and carrying water. You're experiencing the light forces all around. It's not about what you do, it's about the consciousness within which you are doing it that governs your experience.
Have fun, everyone, as you take these principles into your reality, into your life, and create your beautiful world. Wow. SomRa, you have always uplifted us. In every situation, we're always a higher frequency when we get done speaking with you. I encourage people to go to acoustichealth.com and check out Quantum Conversations with you. Do a search for SomRa, and you'll find the fascinating story of her multiple walk-ins as an ET. And I love how you said that most of us are ETs incarnating as humans. And maybe that's a whole nother conversation for another summit series. Stay tuned. We're going to invite you for that later. But that is so remarkable that when we realize that, that in itself is more power to us and more comfort, and actually helps us connect the dots a lot more. So this is all an inside job. Our entire journey on planet Earth is an inside job. It really is the opposite of everything we've learned that say, don't be selfish, care about others,
Right.
don't be in your heart.
That's a
Well,
part of
here,
what the dark forces actually put into mass consciousness
uh-huh.
to control you, to sabotage you. Yes.
And it's time, the time is up. The time is up. The gig is up.
And there's one more point in that too, is that I wanted to say there's a big difference between the matrix and polarity, 3D. A lot of people are using those terms interchangeably. I would not do that.
Okay,
The
what's the difference?
polarity is a realm that we as masterful creator beings in the higher planes created. Actually,
Night,
they're even
dark.
higher beings. Yes, for it's a context like a holodeck on Star Trek to set up certain parameters, have certain experiences to expand consciousness. That's what you're doing here, folks. you're
Okay.
you're not stuck here. It's not because of karma. Those are also dark forces teachings that got put in, misunderstandings that are very black and white. You're not experiencing this bad thing because you did that bad thing in another lifetime. If we use that philosophy, Where did it start? Who did the first bad thing?
Yeah.
You know,
Chicken or the egg, right? Chicken or
yeah,
the
yeah, that's not how it works. It's
Okay.
what's the energy that was put into whatever that thing was. If you're defining murder as bad,
Ah,
if
yeah.
you're defining this or that, the turkey getting killed as bad, then that's going to govern how you feel and your experience. That energy then goes into your Taurus, rather than, oh, this is two beings going through a dynamic, the dog and the turkey. That has nothing to do with me. That's a part of their journey and those souls' discoveries. Animals, by the way, all of them are high beings. They have their own soul names. I don't ingest animals or anything like that. You're taking in negative energy. That's a whole other thing. When you do that, you're taking in that trauma energy, rather. They're souls. To me, they're equals. They're not higher, or lower, or any of that stuff. They have a different consciousness that they're working with, that those souls are working with, versus a human consciousness, a canine versus a feline. They're still divine beings. They know what they're doing. And those souls incarnated to have that experience. And whatever the one who incarnated as the turkey wanted to learn is getting their experience learned. Meanwhile, they agreed with you as a soul for you to witness this so that you could go through this experience and discover an old wound that needs healing and love.
Yes, yes.
So
And
is
it's
it a
well
bad
beyond the
thing?
turkey. Yeah.
Huh?
It's well beyond the turkey. What we did in the tapping brought up emotions well beyond the turkey. It was a wounded aspect of my child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So was it a bad thing or a gift? Did the turkey really die? Or is this a soul that's eternal that's just popping in avatar bodies having experiences for gaining and understanding from different perspectives? The one who is the turkey might be the dog next time in the same dynamic. Oh, this is what was going on in the dog's consciousness. Now I know because I've lived it. Okay. And there's the soul's expanding.
Okay.
It's a whole different way of living, but let me tell you, it's a lot more fun, and the spiritual journey makes more freaking sense when you get
Yeah.
it. You're not here. You're outside, so to speak, this polaric context. Now, polarity is 3D, 4D, has to do with the illusion of separation. We're not there's no separation, it's the illusion of that. And we could go into that more another time. The Matrix, like in the movie, is an actual artificial simulation put within the Matrix on humanity by the dark forces. And there are actually layers and layers and layers of Matrix that you have to wake up from. Okay, that's just added into the game, especially for those of us who are more advanced souls. We need more we need more things, to kind of keep us in the game, because we'll wake up too quickly, and that's not the goal. The goal is not to wake up quickly. The goal is to gain as much as you can in the journey, in the process, and take it with you. Whether you ascend or choose to drop your body, however it's meant to go, the goal is, remember, timeline spiraling upward, to continually go vertical and expand as you go. All right? Gain wisdom, compassion, understanding. That's the purpose of being here. Okay? Put in a nutshell. Everyone has their individual kind of purposes as souls as well. And so in that process, then you achieve what you're wanting to achieve, awaken and ascend. You're awakening with every step of the way. When you realize nothing is bad, nothing is wrong. And the matrix is actually like a computer simulation. Like what I told you, my client experienced a glitch in the matrix. That was kind of a part of that too. But it's what the wool they're pulling over us about what illusion is. They literally have technology to change what's in the sky and all kinds of things. They control the weather, we know that. They can create big giant holographic images. They can create
Yeah.
holograms of planes that are actually bombs that fly into buildings and blow buildings up. Hint hint. They have been manipulating the planet for centuries. Centuries, 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 okay? And as you wake up to that, and it has no power over you, because your true power is divine. Spirit is powerful than all of this silly technology. Okay? Because you're becoming a master to it all. So the matrix an artificial simulation, set of simulations within the greater polaric context, which is a divine process of walking through and evolving and into oneness 5D and beyond.
Thank you for sharing that definition between the two and for giving us a pathway to exit the matrix. Absolutely. We are more aware of it and we are liberated. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I just love being in your space and the work that you do is pretty rapid for the emotions. Like in just that 1 minute with me, what came up and it reveals more to do, but this is something that we can do in every aspect of our life all the time. And so ways that people can work with you, SomRa, there is a webinar coming up, a class that's coming up. And of course, there's another big option for things in the past. You've mentioned a few of these things in our program today, but that's all there on this page for people to scroll down and check out. But tell us about this course that's coming up. This is a webinar and we're excited.
Yes, yes. So I call it Rise into Higher Timelines Now, how to naturally progress into your optimal reality. So this talk today is a great foundation for it. And if you didn't get to see the whole thing, please do, because it's going to really help you if you want to take this course. So we'll be going a deeper dive into these 4 foundational keys plus more depending on the time. I also have kind of gotten a hint from Spirit we might be teaching more further advanced courses too. I get into more and more of these key things to help you hone your ability to shift your timeline pretty much instantaneously, especially when you're focusing on micro shifts that lead to macro shifts. So we're going to be talking about a lot of the things that we did here, just going deeper, like as within, so without. That's what that means, folks, throughout, in the ancient texts. What's going on within you is what's on the outer. What's on the outer is a reflection of what's going on within you. And we're going to be talking about grounded spiritual practices. I love the woo-woo metaphysical stuff, but we're also going to, how do you bring it home? How do you really ground it in your day-to-day life? And to where you can be effective. We're definitely going to be talking about the role of healing the past and past trauma and anything uncomfortable, any conflicts within your consciousness. We're going to go deeper into that. And I'm going to take you through processes with each of these keys to help you be able to take it and use it right away in your life. And just applying any one of these can shift your timeline. But when you combine several and you really get in that masterful state of practicing where it's just natural, then there's no stopping you. You're going to be commanding your reality like crazy. And this is, to me, is spiritual mastery and is an element of that, and there's so much more, and it's going to take you all the way to 5D. This is the way out, so to speak, which is really the way in. It's all within. This isn't really happening. And it looks like we're jumping in time, but actually what's happening is that our reality, our version of reality is changing around us. That's actually what's happening. We're not moving because there is no space and time beyond 4D, into 5D. So we're going to go deeper into understanding that and how to work with that and how to live from that place. And so that's really fun. I'm going to be sharing a technique that will help keep you in your optimal timeline all the time. It's a visualization practice as well. That's kind of like a nice bonus in there that I do pretty much every single day, and it helps a lot. The masters gave that to me, the ET Ascended Masters. Yep, and lots of tips, pitfalls to avoid, that kind of stuff that any class will offer to just maximize your experience.
So beautiful. Thank you for that. It's recorded, so people who can't make it live in the moment can certainly be in the energy of it. With the recording, it works just as well. That's where it goes quantum. And then to come back to that recording, it's always going to root out deeper levels or other issues that may come up. So it's a beautiful practice to use several times or just the one time, whatever your heart desires. Thank you so much for that, SomRa. And then the other programs that you've done in the past, those are also available on this special offer. Folks can scroll down on this webpage and look at it and take those beautiful opportunities to work with you in that way as well. You and your team, your team here on Earth, the people who you surround yourself with on your team at your workspace, and then your higher team are always just beautiful beings of light that always uplift us. And for that, we are so grateful. Thank you for that.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
So as we say goodbye, I just want to give you a moment for final thoughts.
Well, a lot has been said, and my heart just really expands to everyone listening. You have so much more potential than you realize. And even if you know it in your core, there's always even more because our minds can only perceive so much. And so even in those moments where you feel low or where you feel not as effective, you feel like maybe you're not advancing on your spiritual path as fast, it's very important to not compare yourself to other people. One of the greatest teachings I got from the masters, the ascended masters, is you cannot judge your insides based on other people's outsides. You don't know what's going on within them. And some of the greatest spiritual teachers or healers or whatever, have deep issues that aren't resolved. They're not necessarily any further along than you. I wouldn't claim to be totally there or anything like that. And so that's the thing, is the more honest we can just be about where we're at, the more it's all okay. It's all okay if you are addicted to chocolate or, you can't quite get over this or that issue yet. It's all temporary. It's not personal. And if you stay in that state of you're on this spiral evolving, let it guide you. You got a higher team that's guiding you. And that state of self-acceptance and self-validation goes a long, long way. One of my other offers is a course called Tap into Self-Love, and it's using EFT. I take everyone through to cultivate self-love. I highly encourage you to get that course, use it if you have any issues around that, and it will break you out of a lot of patterns, and to where you can really feel that love that you're made of. Everything you want is already here. Oneness is right here. It's just a matter of where your attention is in the spectrum. And it's not somewhere you got to get to. You got it all right here. And so myself and other practitioners who are on the same wavelength, we're here to help with that. But know that you've got the keys, in your own higher team is helping you all the time to make these shifts. And you can do it. You totally can do it. And we're all in this together. Everything that each of us learns and gains and expands, it goes into the collective. So thank you for your contribution too, listeners, for whatever healing you're doing on yourself, because it helps us all.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for those beautiful words and this experience today. We are lifted and we are feeling empowered. And wow, well done, everyone. SomRa, your team, and everyone watching and listening. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the light in the world. I can feel the shift, and it's so extraordinary. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Light and love, everyone. You got this.
We got the power.
We got the power.
Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.